Okay, we're going to take a look at a dashboard in Qlik. We're looking at some publicly available federal spend data, okay, and we're going to go ahead and jump in and make some selections. So let's go ahead and select a time period. We're going to select, let's do all 4 quarters from 2019. So we're going to go ahead and select those, click our check mark, and we can see those selections tracked in the ribbon above. You can always change those selections at any time, just from that ribbon. Okay, so we can add, subtract or add back in Q4, but those look good for now. You can see with that selection, everything on the dashboard updated. Okay, so they're all interactive. We may say on this particular graph in the upper left, we're not really interested in those outliers. We just want to look at this cluster a little bit more closely. So we're going to use our lasso tool and zoom into that. We've made a selection here, and everything else is updated to that selection. That selection is also always tracked in the ribbon at the top, so we can see funding agency name and the different agencies that fall within our lasso selection on that graph. All of these graphs are interactive, so we're actually going to make an additional selection from a graph here. Let's go ahead and pick a time frame here. We can just drag across the time frame that we want. We can adjust, the start end time just by dragging over. Okay, once we've got our selection, we'll go ahead and hit the check mark. And again, those selections are tracked in the ribbon at the top of the page. But we can always go in there and make any adjustments that we might want to make directly within that ribbon as well. So drop down if we misselected or want to adjust anything. We can also use that as a tool. Okay, so I want to pay a little bit of attention on this graph in the upper left. It looks like one simple graph. It has a couple of bells and whistles though. Each axis has an option to make an alternative selection. Okay, so we can actually pivot that axis. So in this case, from total spend from number of awards to total spend. So this is essentially, in this case, 4 graphs in one, but you can imagine if we had maybe 6 options for each, this would be a lot of graphs in one spot. So really efficient way to be able to dig down in and explore the data without having to have, whatever it may be, 30, 40 different graphs to do it. You can also clear all your selections from above, so we're going to do that just to get back to sort of our original starting point here. Okay. So the other thing that we have access to is natural language. So we can start to type in a query here. We know we want to take a closer look at an agency having to do with security. We don't really know what field name it might be. So we type it in, we get a whole bunch of suggestions, and we're actually going to go ahead and select the funding agency. That's kind of what we were looking for. Okay, it's come with 2, so Department of Homeland Security and Social Security Administration. We really just want the Department of Homeland for our purposes right now, so we're going to just go ahead and deselect Social Security Administration. Okay, and now everything is updated to that selection. Okay. So with Qlik, we never actually lose sight of any of our data across the data set. So you can imagine, there are tons of other fields in our data set that aren't necessarily on this particular dashboard that we might want to utilize, right? And you might uncover a question and you want to dig down deeper. So we're going to take a look by selecting that selection pane that we just clicked on and actually look for the sub-agency. We want to get a little bit more specific than what we're able to just with the things that are on that particular dashboard. So we found sub-agency just by natural language search, okay? And we're going to find, yep, there we go, the FBI, and we've made that selection. Okay, let's select out of our selection pane here. And that brings us back to the dashboard with that selection that we've made. Now keep in mind, the sub-agency is not represented anywhere on here, but we haven't lost sight of that within our data. So we can get anywhere at any point within our data and Qlik. Okay, and that's what taking a look at the front end of a data dashboard with Qlik looks like.